All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today for the MyStar Learning Series, the first of the school year. Welcome back. We're so excited to have you here. And we're excited about our topic today. We want you to be proactive and feel confident and engaging your parents and stakeholders in the MyStar curriculum and really helping everybody get on board with this amazing, project that we have here. And we have some great presenters with us today. We have Chris Gear, who is our professional learning coordinator. I'm sure you've seen her name somewhere. And she's also a recently retired MyStar teacher. She's been around for a long time, so she knows how to communicate some of these nuances with parents and stakeholders. And then we have Barb McIntyre with us as well, and she's with our assessment team. And she's also a retired MyStar teacher. And so she's got some really great tips and tricks to how to communicate the way MyStar assesses student learning. And so we're really excited for her content as well. And my name is Lindsay Watch, and I'll be the session facilitator today. I work on the curriculum development and professional learning teams for MyStar. So if you have any technical difficulties or you need, a link or anything, feel free to private chat me and I can get you what you need. So thank you again for being here today. And we're going to start off with a little icebreaker, and Chris is going to introduce our question for us.
So I'm going to ask you to think about last year when you had conversations, emails, phone calls, in the hallway, conferences, whatever. What kind of questions and what kind of concerns did you hear about your science class from parents, caregivers? Parents were concerned about not having a textbook. Yep, got that a lot. How are they going to do their homework if they don't have a textbook? How am I going to help them study if they don't have a textbook? Grades. What's going on with the grades? Why isn't there a grade being put in every day? Why does my A student not have straight A's this year? How can I help them? I don't know what to do to help them do better. If they're not getting straight A's, I want to help them do better. And I don't know how can I do that, especially if there's no textbook. I don't understand that the assessments look very different. The tests look very different. How do I help them prepare for those tests? My child is going on vacation for 2 weeks. Can you just give me their work? Like, no, because their work, if it was a textbook and a worksheet, you don't need me, right? Anyway, yeah, that was a big one. How do they make it up? You're only on the second unit. What's taking so long? Yep. No syllabus. Why aren't there study guides? How do I help them study or do better? So this session actually was born of the experiences that I had as a teacher. And it was my experience that I had this conversation at November conferences like 40 or 50 times in a 3 or 4 hour period. And it occurred to me after that I should be proactive and maybe front load some of this stuff at the beginning of the year so that parents and kids weren't stressed as the year went on. They didn't understand what was going on. They didn't understand how to help their kid. They didn't know why we were going so slow. Why didn't we have a textbook? They're worried about, is my kid getting a quality education? All of that stuff. And so I had gone through a leadership program with Oakland Schools, and one of the key underpinnings of that leadership program was using the 7 habits of highly effective people. And the first habit is be proactive. So that's why we call this session Be Proactive. So we're going to talk about today some tools you can use, some things we're going to share with you to be proactive and to get out in front of all of those questions and concerns and stresses so that you don't have to have the same conversation over and over and over again with individual parents. We're gonna do some pre-teaching. So be proactive is the first of the 7 habits, but there's also one of the habits is begin with the end in mind. And so I'm going to ask you right now to begin with the end in mind. Let's think about where do we want to end up with this. All right. So we know we have parents who have concerns. We want to do something about it ahead of time. Where do we want to end up? So we're going to ask you to jump back in the slides, grab a sticky note, but this time I want you to think about instead of the concerns that you listed, just now, what would you like to hear? What would make your heart sing to hear at conferences or in emails or passing in the halls? What kind of questions and comments would you want to hear in the middle of the year or later? So go ahead back in there, grab one of the green sticky notes, and if you could, in your dream world, what would you want parents to be saying to you? All right, so I'm seeing my child is using their science notebook as a resource. Awesome. My child is coming home and explaining things to me. Yeah, that used to be my most favorite thing in the world, for parents to come into conferences and say, yeah, over dinner or in the car, my son or daughter was telling me about what you're doing in science. I was like, I'm doing my job then. That's how I knew. My child is making connections, coming home, telling me what we're doing. Actually likes science this year, likes the hands-on. Yeah, my child is getting, the only grade that they're getting that's passing grade or a good grade is in science. They get what's going on. A lot of what we do in MyStar and NGSS really truly does meet the needs of all students. And so that can happen. They're excited about how much they've grown. They're driving their learning. My child is becoming a better thinker and problem solver thanks to the science and engineering practices. Getting comfortable sharing ideas with their lab partners. My child wants to be an engineer. I used to hear a lot of, we really want them to like science, because parents are thinking that's, going to get them a good job. And so they were happy if their child liked science class. We want to really encourage that. And students or parents are helping others locate the information, right? Okay, those kids are becoming experts in what we're talking about. So this is what we want to hear. We'd like to avoid all of the concern about no textbooks and things like that. So this is where we want to end up. So this is beginning with the end in mind. So in order to get there, we're going to be proactive and begin with the end in mind. We want to do something up front. We want to think about where we want to end. In order to get where we want to go, we have to first put ourselves in the shoes of the other person, right? And then we're going to think about how we can get what we want and what they want, and all at the same time. And so seek first to understand is another one of the 7 habits. So let's think about, if you were, or some of you are for sure, parents or caregivers, what would you want for your middle school science students experience? And what have you heard parents and caregivers say that they want? So there's a really good chance that what teachers want and what parents want is, they're the same thing. And we want to get to that point where everybody's getting what they want. But we'll just do this one in the chat. In the chat, if you are a parent, or imagine that you were a parent, what would you want for your student to get out of science class? So drop some thoughts in the chat, if you don't mind. So Montana says hands-on experience, place-based education, lots of group work. My children to actually do science. Yep. I want them to come home and say, science is fun. It's my favorite class. Yep. Critical thinking in authentic situations, passionate about the subject, engaged in collaborating. Inquiry as well as understanding, and participate in productive talk about the subject. Real world applications. I can do science. It's not as scary as I thought. Yeah, build that confidence as well as interest. All right, so we're thinking about, this is what parents want. Let's think win-win. So win-win is yet another one of the 7 habits. So we're going to think about what do parents want, what do teachers want. It's kind of the same thing. How can we get there? And so what we're going to talk about now is how can specifically MyStar as an NGSS aligned curriculum meet everyone's needs, make the kids happy, the parents happy, the teachers happy. All right, and that's a win-win solution. So in this session, here are our goals. You're going to learn how MyStar can meet the needs of parents and caregivers and their students, explore resources, because we got lots of them, to communicate with those stakeholders, and have some time at the end to synthesize materials, to take a look at those things and get a little head start on planning what you might use for back to school night or conferences or communications. And right now is the perfect time to do it, right as kids are coming back to school. So I'm going to show you a few resources right up front. And these are NGSS resources. And so if you have a back to school night or curriculum night or something like that coming up, this first video, I'm just going to show you this video. It's a couple minutes long, but it's pretty powerful. It's something that you may consider using. So let's just take a look at this. It's just a couple minutes long, but it explains why NGSS is important.
The world is moving so fast.
I know.
I hope that these kids are prepared for what's ahead of them.
We're learning from science standards written in 1996? I wasn't even born in 1996.
It's crazy to me to think that, you know, all across the country, our kids are being taught from science standards that are 20 years old.
So my son being a freshman here, how can you assure me that the level of education he's going to receive will prepare him to succeed in not only colleges, but in careers after he gets out of school?
In the coming years, jobs in science, technology, engineering, and math are expected to increase twice as much as jobs in other fields. We can't predict the future, but we can better prepare our children for it.
Basically, the way science is being taught now, it's a lot more applicable into the real world, and we're able to take the skills that we're learning and bring them further than just high school or middle school.
So I was asking Taylor about, you know, things she was doing in school, and she was so excited because she said, you know, we're learning how to be engineers, Mom.
Now we're doing the next generation science standards, or the NGSS, and basically what happens is it takes what we were learning like from books before. It wasn't doing as much like hands-on, and now they're becoming their own scientists. They're becoming engineers. They get so excited about saying, okay, today we're going to be an engineer, and they know the engineering process. They know what they're going to do first and how to solve the problems.
So there's the problem solving, the brainstorming, the cause and effect, and the justification. I know that those skills will last throughout my whole life in any career field.
If you push a seesaw, it'll go back and forth.
Next generation science standards will give our children the tools they need.
These new science standards, it's really preparing them to be those critical thinkers and more prepared in the job force. I mean, that's the goal. That's what we all want for our kids.
Find out more about the next generation science standards.
All right, so that's a really nice, that's a really nice video to use as a resource. You know, link it in a newsletter, send it in an email, show it at your back to school curriculum night. And this first link here is the link to that YouTube video. The second two links are also NGSS resources. This first one is a one-pager PDF. I used to print this out and use it as a handout at back to school night. Science, it's what did science used to look like? What does it look like now? And when you take a look at this, you know, you see those things that parents are going to want for their kids, and you know, you're starting to convince them. What we used to do, maybe you're familiar with it, but it probably wasn't the best way to teach science. And so this is a really nice one-page handout. And then NGSS also, the third resource, has a, it's longer. I probably wouldn't give all four pages to parents, but it's a 4-page PDF handout. And there, the third page is also that, what does it look like? What did it used to look like? What does it look like now? So these are some good resources that I would suggest that you consider as attachments or handouts for parents. And it kind of primes them for, this is new, this is different, but this is a good thing. and there's a national movement. It's not just, Mrs. Gear making this up in her science class because she's, heard some crazy thing over the summer, right? So there's legitimacy, there's a lot of research and a lot of thought and a lot of expertise in the NGSS. And then I would introduce them to MyStar. And so we're going to think about right now some of the key pieces of MyStar units. We have unit challenges, right? So every unit starts with that unit challenge. It's some kind of scenario that's somewhat realistic, somewhat engaging for kids. And then we do teach them the science disciplinary content, which is always important, and it's especially important to parents because that's that traditional piece. We also use science and engineering practices. And so how does MyStar meet those needs of the parents who want their kids to really love science and engineering, consider science and engineering as a career, maybe learn to think critically, all of those things. And then specifically that engineering piece in MyStar especially is really well integrated, which is why the units might take a little longer, one of the reasons. But how is that going to benefit kids? And so we're going to put you in breakout rooms, and then we have a Jamboard here linked on the slide. And so in your breakout rooms, we'll give you a few minutes to talk about those 4 things. And we have a board for each of those, and we would ask that your breakout room contributes at least 1 thought, but you're welcome to put more about how is the unit challenge good for kids? How is challenging disciplinary content good for kids? How do we know it's high quality? How do we know it's aligned? Science and engineering practices, and I put a copy of them there. I would, always use a copy of the list when you're talking to parents too. And then the engineering, designing and evaluating engineering. How does MyStar give students the opportunities to be engineers? All right, so we're gonna put you in groups and say hi to the people in your group quickly. And then jump into that Jamboard and add at least 1 thought about each of those 4 topics. All right, thanks everybody. So what we've collected here are a whole bunch of thoughts, a whole bunch of ideas that you could use if you're going to do a presentation at a back to school night or a curriculum night, or you want to list some things in your newsletter or whatever. What's MyStar all about? Well, it has real life scenarios, it has engineering, it has science and engineering practices. And here's why that's good, right? So those real life scenarios they're real life, they're helping kids make connections. That's where those dinner time or car conversations are going to come from. They can apply things in a different context, that transfer distance, which is a super great skill. We know that the science content is in there, but it also includes not just those science content things that we learned, the facts, but also how to think about science through the cross-cutting concepts and how to actually do science with the SCPs. And then the SCPs, they're intentionally designed so that kids have to use them to get through the unit. Might be why the unit takes a little longer, right? Because they're learning how to do that and they're having the opportunity to practice, but that makes the units interesting. It makes them hands-on. It makes the kids practice that critical thinking, all the things that we want our kids to do anyway. We want them to be able to argue from evidence and use math and analyze data and those kinds of things, right? So, and then how is that engineering especially great? Well, kids are going to learn that engineering is really kind of learning habits of mind. How do you analyze and evaluate things and solve problems in a very logical way? And there are some processes and techniques that engineers use, that engineering students learn in first-year engineering class, in college, that we can teach kids now. And hey, who doesn't want to solve problems well, right? Even if you never actually become an engineer, you can still use those processes to be a critical thinker and a problem solver. So this is just going to give you some material, some fodder for your communications. And then I would suggest you give them some concrete examples. You told them all this stuff. Now, for example, in the first unit we're going to do, kids are going to be learning about an area that floods in our community, and why does water move the way it does, or whatever. So, you know, get them excited. Hey, this is, you know, this is something that I can talk about with my child. This is something that we know happens in our community. This is, and it's going to be really cool for my kid to have an opportunity to investigate that. And I would describe some of the hands-on labs, and if there's any, you know, outdoor work or whatever is gonna, you know, any real life connections, anything that you're gonna do that's exciting. And then I would think about those positives. Remember, we're trying to make this win-win, or think about those concerns and try to turn them positive. So we're trying to make this win-win. And we had those concerns about grades and studying and no textbook and things like that. And so we know that's different about MyStar and NGSS, but why is that good? And so I'm going to ask you now, I'm going to put you back in your breakout rooms, and I'm going to ask you to think about some of the things that parents are concerned about. They're often concerned that their child does not have a lot of homework. They're concerned that they're not studying before a test, like, you know, memorizing things with flashcards. They're worried that there's no textbook. How could that actually be good? Be good for kids, be good for their science education. And so you're going to kind of address those concerns head on. So I'm going to put you in your groups and give you a few minutes. You're going to do this directly on the slides, not on a Jamboard. So you're going to find the slide with your team number on it, and then just type some thoughts directly in the table. Why is it good to have less homework? Maybe. Why is it good that they're not studying in a very traditional memorizing kind of way? And, you know, why is it okay that we don't have a textbook? All right, everybody's going to be back in 3, 2, 1. Okay, thanks. Great responses here. So some more things that, you know, you might consider when you're having those conversations with parents. You know, we're not giving homework just for compliance, just not, you know, not to just put a grade in the grade book. And there's a lot less pressure for kids to be right or wrong. There's less traditional studying because that rote memorization doesn't really get you very far. And you have that conversation with parents. You talk about how much do you remember after you studied, you know, memorize the flashcard, you know, your short-term memory, you dump it out the next day and it's gone. That's not really what we want. It's not what they want for their kids. And we don't need a textbook quite so much because we're actually doing the science. We're constructing those ideas, you know, with those hands-on experiences and the collaborative discussions. A lot of times parents are actually relieved that there isn't a lot of homework, that it's okay with everyone, that there isn't going to be a science fair project they have to do in their basement and all that kind of stuff. The studying, again, you know, less memorization of facts. Memorization of facts is traditional because it's easy to assess, but you know, think about how much you actually as an adult memorized just or remember just from something you had to memorize versus something you experience. And I love this. There's no textbook for your real world job. That's awesome. And so less homework because we require collaboration, and that's how scientists and engineers work too. They don't work so much at home by themselves. They're working in teams. And so we're doing that at school. And because they're doing that, they're living it, they're feeling it and touching it, they don't have to necessarily worry about memorizing it. It's there. And we're assessing them on the skills and ways of, you know, doing that critical thinking and problem solving that they apply in other contexts on the test anyway. So, you know, and that's the only way we can assess if they have those skills, is to give them a slightly different context, which means memorization isn't going to do them a lot of good. So, and students do create resources. They are taking notes and writing things down. We're just doing it after we've had the experiences and the conversations so that kids have something to connect it with in their mind. And so, yeah, it's not just an easy free for all. It's actually very structured and very purposeful. It's just kind of different than the way you used to do it. And that's a good thing. So I have a couple slides here that I just would offer you this. We have lots and lots of teachers and other staff, other staff members. You might have administrators and maybe even some parents who are worried that there is no textbook regardless, because people often feel like, you know, our kids don't read well enough. How are they going to read the textbook in college? How are they going to read it in high school, et cetera? And so one thing you can remind people of is that English language arts, the Common Core, English language arts standards, it's language arts. There are 4 pieces to language arts. There's speaking, listening, and writing, as well as reading. And a MyStar curriculum is knocking out of the park those first 3. Kids are listening, speaking, and writing all the time. They're writing CERs, they're listening and speaking in small groups, they're listening and speaking in large groups. That's, how we're figuring stuff out, is through that collaboration and conversation, that productive talk. So we are probably doing the speaking, listening, and writing standards for ELA better in science, maybe than even in their English language arts class. And reading text is more than just reading paragraphs. If you look at the Common Core standards, kids are supposed to be able to read graphs, charts, tables, diagrams, and models. And we are knocking that out of the park too. They're not doing a lot of that in English class. And so we are really supplementing and complementing what's going on in English language arts. And we still know that people want their kids to be reading traditional, what we think of as text, paragraphs, maybe a couple of pictures, but news articles and those kinds of things. And so we are in the process of providing those opportunities in every single unit. And you'll see by early in the fall, every single MyStar unit will have at least 2 or 3 reading text activities that come with reading guides that are employing some of the best researched reading strategies. And so we are going to help kids learn how to read science text. And then in the new units, the ones that are enhanced or revised, those reading guides are even differentiated. So they're going to have that text, and then we have a below grade level, at grade level, and above grade level reading guide. And eventually we'll have those in all of our units. But so there's that too. So it's not completely without text. All right. So thank you for listening to me. I'm going to turn this over to Barb, who is on the MyStar assessment team, and she is an assessment guru. And she's going to share with you some specific things that you could talk to parents about why MyStar tests look a little different and why your kids might struggle and why that's a good thing.
Thanks, everybody. Yes, let's talk a little bit about assessment, because I know that tends to be a parent concern. So the first thing I'd like to say before we even get started is that we at MyStar consider assessment an integral part of learning. So assessment is great to inform teachers, it's great to inform students, it's great to inform parents, but above all, it is meant to be a learning experience, and it's meant to be a learning experience that will build students' abilities, that will take them forward in life. And I would say at the very beginning, if you can help parents to see how using MyStar's approach to assessment is going to benefit their students throughout their entire lives, it's really going to help you to get them on board. I also like to remind parents, this is middle school. Now is a wonderful time to build these skills without grades that are going to follow them for a long period of time. So using this new kind of curriculum leads to a new kind of assessment. We can't teach differently and not assess differently. And this next gen NGSS aligned assessment really is going to benefit students in high school, beyond high school, in life, in their jobs. And so using these types of assessments, if we can just help parents to move away from this idea that grades are the end all be all of learning and that assessment can be learning too. Once we can get them on our side to see that and understand why we assess the way we do, I think we can do a lot to get them on our side. So let's talk a little bit about how assessment is different. And I can tell from your responses that a lot of you are very aware of this already. So, but share this with parents. Have them know ahead of time that these assessments are going to be different for their kids, and that, their kids are going to have to adjust to this. Their science assessment won't look like possibly social studies or English assessments. And you know what? That is a good thing in lots of ways, because it's going to meet our goals for what we want our students to be able to do. So take a look on the left side. We see what assessments used to look like, representing exactly what they've already learned. You read it in the textbook, you memorized it, regurgitated. Explaining a phenomenon or addressing a problem you've already fully understood. This is what we did in class, please tell me about it again. Providing a factually correct or incorrect answer. Yep, you got, it was A, B, C, D, E, you picked C, that's correct, boom, done. take a look at what assessments are going to look like now, and feel free to share this with parents. Connecting what you've learned and experienced in a new way. Connecting your learning to a phenomenon or problem that involves authentic uncertainty. So trying to apply what I know to something new, making my thinking, using evidence-based reasoning, looking at a problem or a phenomenon, figuring out what data I need, applying that data, communicating what it is telling me. Those are the kinds of things. So if you compare these two columns, which ones do you think parents would like their students to be able to do when they leave middle school or high school or college or in their jobs? I think lots of times about how I've never as a teacher been able or had to explain necessarily brain research, but boy, I've had to use it. I've learned a lot about management techniques, but no one's asked me to explain them. I've had to apply them. And that's what we're going to ask students to do. The other thing these type of assessments do is to give students voice. They get an opportunity to show what they know. It's not just could you pick the correct one? It's like how you get to show off what you've learned and have students think about that. They're getting a chance to show, to have a voice and show what they can do. It also helps us as teachers. When students make their thinking visible to us with this new style of assessment, we are better prepared to meet their needs. And parents like to hear that. I just don't want to know that you got 8 out of 10 right and that's an 80% of B-. I want to know where your kids' misconceptions are so I can address them, so they can authentically understand. And parents want that just like we do. So how are specifically they different? So if you want to explain to parents, how would you expect these assessments to look different? There's that new context, that transfer distance. Because I want students to apply. I want to be able to see what students are thinking. I want to be able to see their authentic understanding and address their misconceptions. Non-negotiables, we're going to talk about those in just a minute. We really try to limit those knowledge recall types of items. We use them a lot as scaffolding. And we want students to take a problem or a phenomenon that's authentically new to them on the assessment, and we want them to make sense. Think about what that's asking students to do. Figure out what is the problem I'm solving, what information do I need? They're taking a look at data. They're using those scaffolding, those questions. So we're helping students. We're going to say, okay, what are the pieces that they need to pull this all together and to come up with an explanation, solve that problem, and then to communicate it. Think about how powerful the ability to do that is in life. If students can learn using assessments how to do that, what power we've given them. How have we set them up for success at making student thinking visible? Here's a big sell for parents as well. We have looked at state and national tests, high stakes tests, and we've designed these items to be similar. So when you take a MyStar assessment, yes, at first it may be new, it may be uncomfortable. Some students love it because they don't have to memorize anything. They can think about what they did in class and they can apply what they know, and they find this is way easier than have to memorize flashcards. But your type A students love, I was one of those students, I love to memorize, I love to regurgitate. Please don't make me think. I just want to tell you what you've already told me, and I'll just write it all down, memorize my notes, boom, I'm good to go. I know that I know that I know, and that's all I really cared about. But think about, that's not how these tests are now. We've looked at the ACT. That's not what students are being asked to do. We're giving students some of that in that scaffolding. So we're asking them some of those multiple choice questions to get those ideas percolating in their mind before they put it all together. That's part of the learning how to take an assessment, learning how to help them be successful on these kinds of tests. And parents do care about that. We also want them to apply the science and engineering practices, cross-cutting concepts, help make sense of everything. This is another one that I think is really important. These transferable skills. You are going to have students in your classroom that aren't going to go on to college, but they are going to go on to the world of work, and they are going to be in jobs. And every single job is going to ask workers to analyze problems, to communicate with other people, And we want these transferable skills, and assessments are an opportunity to practice those. So if we want students to make sense of the world and be college and career ready, we need to give them practice. And an assessment is a place where they can have practice doing that. So if we can try to de-emphasize this grades. Grades are something we have to provide for students and for parents. But if we have that growth mindset with parents, if we can get them to buy in, I think we can help them to see that in middle school, grades don't matter that much anyway. And hopefully you are, as a teacher, grading in a way that doesn't make assessments the most important thing. And if they are, then hopefully you're grading them in a more easy way. We want students to feel successful. And that's part of the reason why we have the scaffolding, because most students can at least get those first couple easier questions as they build. And then as they get more practice, they build skills towards putting it all together, just like they're going to be asked to do in college and in the world of work. So we've talked a little bit about non-negotiables, and if you've done any assessment, professional learning, you know what these are. These are the things that, this is what it looks like to ask students to demonstrate progress towards three-dimensional standards, and these are the most important features of high-quality science tests. This is what we try to do with our assessments, and we're getting hopefully better. I wouldn't say that we're great yet, but we're working on it. We're revising assessments as we learn more. We're revising, we're trying to make them better. But here are the things that parents should see in MyStar assessment, and these are considered to be the gold standard of assessment. And these are the things they're going to see in those state and national tests. Those are going to be the kinds of things that college professors are going to expect students to be able to do. These are the kinds of things that students nationwide, those are the must-haves. And so anyone that's using NGSS aligned assessment should be doing these non-negotiables. And so we want our students to have an advantage. We want them to be ready. And having assessment items that ask students to use these non-negotiable criteria, that's when you see these things, and parents can do that too. When they see assessment items that ask students to do these things, they know they're NGSS aligned, and they know they're getting their students ready for what comes next in life. So benefits, these are huge. And I would say, you know, if you have parents who are concerned about this NGSS aligned assessment, feel free to use this information to help them. MyStar assessments benefit kids because they help to build transferable skills. And they give students a chance to do all of these things. Changes are coming in the workforce, and they're going to include more STEM jobs. Employers want workers that have these transferable skills, things like problem solving, sense making, transfer of knowledge, communication, adaptability, creativity. These are going to be the things they need in their careers. And then if we think about scientific literacy, think about all of the things we need to make, all the decisions we need to make in life that require us to have scientific literacy. Can I read the medical charts to pick what type of treatment would be best for me? When I need to make financial decisions, am I able to differentiate between something that causation and correlation? Gosh, if more adults could do that, wouldn't that be fantastic? So we're asking our students as they work through these assessments to build and learn more in terms of their scientific literacy. College readiness, we've talked about that, state and national tests. Just as an example, my son works for Amazon, and he had an Amazon interview. It was during the pandemic, so he was here at home. He was downstairs interviewing. I was upstairs, and I could hear bits and pieces. This is what he has a degree in computer science, and this was his interview. 4 hours. He had 5 minutes between each hour. Each hour he was put into a room, virtual room with a different team. They gave him a programming challenge. He had to write code in front of them, explain what he was doing, answer questions, and come up with a solution. 5-minute break, next hour, new challenge. He had to write the code. Do you think they cared if he could define what a data tree was? Not at all. They wanted to know what he could do. And so that's the world we're looking at for these students. Let's give them practice. Let's let them learn and get them fluent with all of these sorts of skills so they're ready. And MyStar assessment is designed to help. It's designed to help students get a chance to practice along with the curriculum. They're one and the same, all learning. And the beautiful thing about middle school is it's kind of a low stakes opportunity. So here's what you'll hear. No study guides. How am I supposed, I want to help my child. That's wonderful. Yes, we want you to help your child. How can you do that? Get them to class. That is the number one thing. It's active learning and problem solving. There is no substitute. It's the most important thing. They practice during the curriculum. They practice an assessment. It's an opportunity to show what you can do. Talk to your students. Make connections to home and work and community. Help them reflect on their experiences and communicate their learning. Talk about, how did your thinking change? What did you learn today? What did you do? Oh, what do you think that meant? How did you go about solving that problem? What are you doing well? What are you still working on mastering? Oh, graphic is still hard? What could we do to practice that? Oh, okay, so you're still having some trouble with CER, so let's think about that. Emphasize learning over grades. If you can get parents to buy into this, that will make your job so much easier. These middle school grades don't follow your student forever, but the skills they develop will. And so let's help them to realize what's really important. So the other thing that I think can be really helpful is to explain your grading philosophy to parents ahead of time. So if you're going to use a MyStar level type grading, like we recommend, make sure your parents understand what a 2-point means, what a level 3 means, what a level 4 means, and help them understand what sorts of things each level, like, okay, so at a level 2, we're really looking at some basic. Level 3 is very much proficiency. Level 4 is really sophisticated ability to put all of these ideas together and communicate them in a really sophisticated way. So help parents to see what that grading means, and then if you can help grade so that students can see growth and so that they can feel success and get that sense of perseverance. That's really important too. And I'll stick around a little bit after. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to help.
Here's what we're going to do. I do want you to have a little bit of time in breakout rooms to talk to some other people about coming up with just kind of a plan. And so we've listed some different ways you might communicate with parents and stakeholders. This link leads you to a bunch of organizational resources, the organizational resources document, and there's a whole section here about parent public proactive toolkit. So when you click on this link, this is also available under resources on the dashboard anytime, but you click on the link and you find this whole list of things that you can use, as well as anything you saw here today in these slides you're welcome to use. So we're going to put you in breakouts. We're going to give you these resources, and we're going to ask you to just kind of bounce ideas off of each other of how you might use this and how you might kind of get started. So I'm just going to give you about 10 minutes to talk to each other and kind of get a little bit of a plan.
Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had some great conversations in your breakout rooms, and hopefully have the start of a plan for when you're talking to your parents and stakeholders. And if there's any questions in the public agenda, Chris and Barb's emails are there, so please feel free to reach out if you are looking for other resources or there's something you just can't find. Please feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to help however we can. We have a lot of great virtual sessions that are coming up this fall. I didn't even have enough room to put them all on the table. So this is just a small snippet of what's coming up for September, October, and the very beginning of November. So please check out the MyStar dashboard in the kind of the right side column in the upcoming professional learning events section, and you can register for all the great things we're offering this fall. Couple more learning series sessions are coming up in September and October that we're really excited for. So we hope to see you at another learning series or phase 2 session soon. So we'd like to thank you for
sorry.
your time today. No problem, Chris. We really appreciate you being here. We know it's the beginning of the school year and there's lots going on. So thank you for being here. Please, if you could sign out in the chat and just share one takeaway from today that that you really found valuable, hopefully, or we'd love to hear what you thought. We do have kind of a more formal feedback survey. You can make it anonymously if you would like. And the link to that feedback form is in the slide if you would like to fill out kind of a more detailed questionnaire. But we thank you so much for your time, and please let us know. We'll stick around for a few minutes if there's any questions. Thank you so much. And thank you to our presenters for all your great information today.
Thanks, everyone. It was great to see you, and we are always happy to help. If you have thoughts or ideas, we'll hang out here for a little bit, or send us an email. We're always happy to chat.
Yep. Best to you on the new school year. We really appreciate everything that you're doing for the kids. That's what we know.
Yeah.
So hard and stressful, and just thank you for your great work.